I'm Brooke Shaden, a fine art photographer, and in this series, I'm sitting down with artists to talk about greater creativity, before taking them on a photo shoot to push their art to new levels and capture an image that speaks to the limits they want to break free from. Jimmy Parton isn't quite a photographer yet. In this episode, she creates her very first image on camera that explores grief as she navigates her own hardships. Jimmy and I are both foster parents, and we both parented the same baby girl. After losing her father, foster parenting kids who she knew wouldn't stay, and getting diagnosed with lupus at a young age, she's channeling her grief into photography to explore how self-expression can be a great healer. We're both foster parents, and for anyone who doesn't know, foster parents mean that you take in children temporarily, and then they hopefully reunite with their families or with somebody who can take care of them long term. And so we both parented the same baby.
Yes.
We'll call her baby Coco.
Yeah.
And so I picked up baby Coco from the hospital, had her for 5.5 months, and then you took her home. And so we have this really weird shared history together.
It's really unique to know a kid's potential first foster home. Like, it's just been such a gift to, like, the transition from you to us was such a unique and beautiful thing. And then us forming a friendship out of that was so great. But just, like, knowing that, like you said, she's been cared for, like, so deeply since day one, that's been just such a gift.
Yeah.
When we went to go get baby Coco from you, my husband and I were like, what is this art? Like, it's all in your house and it's beautiful. And we truly, like, aside from all the emotions from the day, we're like, what is that? Like, that's so beautiful. And we both felt moved. And I knew I always wanted to be creative. I'm in the medical field, and so that's not exactly creative. And so pushing through, I lost my dad in March. And that's around the same time that we got baby Coco. And so
it was just a couple weeks later.
Yeah, and you actually stepped in and, like, helped with baby Coco so that I could be with my family. And yeah, it was just a ton of loss all at once, but also something brand new in my life and so beautiful. And I kind of tried to just push past that into the summer, and then in the fall I was just feeling like a lot of the weight of grief, especially when you try to hold it in instead of process. And we had started to reconnect, and I was just kind of into your social media, and I was like, I think I can do this. Like, Brooke is so inspiring. Like, your message of everyone should create, everyone has something to say. I was like, this needs to be my outlet for getting out grief and for processing it. And it's just been your friendship and learning, and just that whole process has been so helpful. And I also have lupus, and I was diagnosed with that really young at 22, and so, like, to say that doesn't affect my day-to-day is not true. And so just, like, having these moments where it's like, I don't think about lupus, I don't think about my dad, and then in that moment, but then afterwards really processing, like, I've had so many moments of, like, my dad would be so proud of me. And, like, before that, I couldn't even, like, think about my dad at all for almost, it's almost been a year since he's passed, and I can't even hardly think about him sometimes. So
Do you feel like your journey through foster care, through illness, through loss, do you feel like that has given you strength as well as grief? Do you feel like that's given you something to just be proud of yourself for?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's hard. That's hard to answer because especially when I was going through lupus at the beginning, I was really, really sick, and people would be like, you're so strong, I don't know how you fight this, and that always felt really awkward to me. And same with foster care, they're like, you're so strong, I could never do that. And that is, I don't feel that way, right? Like, I don't ever feel like I'm just, like, killing it at life and no one else is, you know? And so I am able to hold pain and joy at the same time. That feels like true strength to me.
That is the epitome of strength.
Yeah, so that learning that lesson has been, and trying to embody that in everyday life has been hard and really good too.
I actually, it's really funny because when you were saying, you know, people would say you're so strong and stuff, and, you know, how do you get through it? And you feel like, well, I barely am, and maybe I'm not that strong.
Yeah.
I actually feel the opposite. So, which I know is going to sound horrible, right? To say something like that. But when people say to me, you're so strong for doing this, I legitimately respond by saying, thank you, I agree. And I do that because I want to acknowledge that it does take a lot of strength to do that. That most people will say no to the hard things, but we say yes.
Yeah.
And I want to celebrate that. And it's not that most people say no to all hard things. Everyone has something that they're saying yes to that's really difficult for them.
Yeah, right.
But when somebody acknowledges the difficult choice I've made, I love to celebrate that and to be like, yes, I did make a hard choice, and yes, it is hard every day.
Like the message that you always send that like everyone should be creating because everyone's different and everyone has something to say out there is so beautiful, and like an important, like if you wouldn't have been saying that, I wouldn't be creating right now. Like it is important to say like art can be for everyone.
My typical process when I brainstorm an image is to think about theme first, then I start to think about the visuals that could match that. Today I'm thinking about creating about loss and release, but also our connection.
Anytime I do have an image that comes into my head, it's usually either baby Coco or my dad or foster care or something, you know, starting with a genre, and then just trying to think of symbolism that I might want in there and stuff like that. Maybe having like an element that clearly represents them, and then maybe a different part of me also wanting to hold on to them. I don't know.
That makes perfect sense. That actually does, because that's exactly, I mean, obviously I know that intimately because I feel that.
Yeah.
But also I think that there are a lot of ways that you could represent that. Are there any props or anything that you want to use to represent that other entity?
Maybe like an oversized, like really beautiful flower that represents like all these beautiful children and their innocence and just how pure and great they are amidst even the pain that's going on in their personal lives. Like they're just so beautiful. So
I'm thinking for mine, my vision is sort of having all these aspen trees all around us, and I want both of us to be in this picture because I want it to be about our connection, our individual connections to the kids. Probably. I mean, I might tell you it didn't work, but we'll see. Okay. So we picked this spot in the aspens because I think that white is a symbol for innocence. And I think this landscape just looks so desolate out here that it's sort of like the emptiness, like we're filling that space. So I'm going to shoot us right here, and I will be facing this way, and then I'm gonna have my head just like this on you. And I'm going to try to braid our hair together or twist it together in some way right down the middle here. That way we're connected. And then later in post, we'll add the rope connecting to the trees. I think it's gonna look phenomenal. I'm gonna come out there and just get this done as fast as we can so that we don't freeze. If I move a little bit like that, does that help? Okay, now we're gonna have our hands out. Yep, good. And I'm gonna lift this one up higher, and that one can go, that's perfect. Put it back on me. There you go. Okay, click. And again. And again. Oh my God, it's really beautiful. It's time for your photo shoot. The theme is letting go, connection. So we're shooting on a black backdrop, which I think is good for this photo. I think it makes sense because the flowers are gonna really stand out instead of being outside where it just will look normal that there are flowers outside. So this is gonna be great. And the flowers are going to lead to the one big orchid.
Yes.
How big do you want the orchid to be?
As big as we can get it in the frame. That looks good.
Okay. Well, see, with editing, it could be 50 feet tall. And you want it sort of leaning toward you in the frame? Like, is that how you want to photograph it? Or
I
away?
think straight on for the flower. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I would actually just suggest, as we place these flowers, maybe making like a little bit of a curvy path, just so it's not just straight. That way we're creating some visual interest. Would you like me to quickly take a test shot?
Yeah, let's do that and then we can see how it looks.
Perfect. Good. Okay, come take a look and we can talk about the settings, where you're sitting, all that.
Let's see.
Like really, really, really stunning.
Oh, I like it. I think I want to be like sitting up taller.
Sure,
and
that
then,
makes
like,
sense.
The backdrop's not behind me.
Okay, so to fix that, we can push everything back and then that'll make sure there's more black behind you.
Okay.
Let's just do this again with a different pose and push it back.
Awesome. Give me any cues.
Will do. Well, that's also not bad, you know?
Yeah.
Like a prayer pose makes a lot of sense. I know that faith is important to you, and there's also just the element of sort of giving into the divine.
Do you think that's too much of my face, or do you think it's okay?
I think it's perfect.
Okay.
The way that the light hits it and the planes of your face too, you know, the light is going like this in a curve.
Yes, it's really, the lighting's really good.
Let's take a look at my photo that I shot first. We got a lot of interesting shots of the trees, so I could composite in any of these trees to the final image. But mostly I took these shots just so that I have the blank snow because I didn't want a whole bunch of footprints going through. And the only thing that I'm unhappy with is that there isn't a lot of light right through here on our faces. It's kind of brighter through here. And I always want to think about where the light is hitting. Just like that. So now we're creating more interest there, and I can even do the opposite now and create less interest through the bottom of the frame. And you can see that just those couple of changes with the light have really shifted how we see this image, and that's going to be really important in an image that's so neutral. Let's look through your pictures. This was your first test shot. And I remember when we looked at it, we decided the dress wasn't quite right, the pose wasn't quite right, but then it really kind of just like went to perfection after that. I think I loved that you were up on your knees, and I love the light. Which images are you most drawn to?
I think keep the ones towards the end where we were messing with the dress.
Yeah, because the dress is flowing now and your pose feels more intentional.
Yeah, and I think we tried the orchid, but I didn't
That's right, and so you can
really
see
like
you can see the flower here is just not quite reading as a flower, I think. With this type of image, we really only have two main components. There's the shot of you and the flower. So I would just go ahead and select it, you know, kind of closely, just so there's less work later. But I would just select as much as you want. And so we can just sort of place it like at the end there. Yeah, and you can see the black backdrop doesn't quite reach. That's okay. You know, we can just add more of that in and that won't be an issue. But this, I think the size of this is amazing. The final image that you created is really special and so beautiful. And this is your first finished picture ever.
I know.
How do you feel it came out?
I love it. I think it really was what I was picturing in my head, and like even better. So I think all the elements I wanted there, it feels super great. Being able to use photography as a way to inspire others, to show like, yeah, you can love without having full control over that thing that you're loving is such a hard, painful lesson to learn. But I think photography has been such a great way to like process that process of learning that lesson. You know, it makes it less painful when you're able to get it out and create it and make something beautiful.
I think that it really is about acknowledging this is my life. I've made these choices and it will hurt, but it will also be beautiful. And I can express both of those things at the same time.
But I think grief is suffocating, and it can be, and having art to be able to process and just release those emotions is is such a beautiful and a very needed thing.
Yeah.
And I am so thankful for this and you, and I really hope that this episode inspires people to create, and really especially people who are grieving or going through hardships in life, that they can see that art is something that can really help you process that.